Episodes of the Green Corn Rebellion Show are sponsored by Oklahoma Progress Now. Oklahoma Progress Now is a 501c4 organization focused on building progressive power in Oklahoma. Their primary efforts are on developing progressive content for a 21st century audience, coalition, and capacity building across progressive organizations and causes, and working to see elected leaders who are more responsive to their constituents and the needs of the many. Areas of focus include progressive messaging and communications, coalition building and resource sharing, and focused progressive policy goals. You can check out their Twitch live streams, and they go live on Facebook on at noon, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Please support this organization. It's a really great organization. It's just getting started here in Oklahoma. Thank you. Now enjoy the rest of the video. Hello, this is the Green Corn Rebellion Show, and today I am here with State Senator Julia Kirt, who represents Senate District 30 here in Oklahoma. How are you doing today?
Doing well, thanks. How about you?
I'm doing all right. So first question I have here is, where are you from and where'd you grow up?
Well, I'd say I'm from Oklahoma, but my dad was in the military, so I was born abroad. I was born in England, and we came back to be near family, but my mom went to grad school in Texas, so I've lived several places, but Oklahoma's home for sure. My family's here. I went to undergraduate school in Minnesota at McAllister College in St. Paul. That was awesome.
That's cool. So what made you run for state senator?
So when I first came back to Oklahoma after college, I got to work at the art museum in Oklahoma City. And then after that, I got to work with artists all over the state. And I ran a group called Oklahoma Visual Arts Coalition. And it's named OVAC, Oklahoma Visual Arts. They work with artists all over. And the big goal is try to help artists make it here, pursue their dreams, find audiences, people to keep making art and being creative in our community. And it was like the most amazing introduction to our state. I got to drive around everywhere from, Guyman, Arnett, to the other end of the world. And of course, Tulsa, Oklahoma City, and all different communities have amazing creativity. And it just blew my mind with like the potential in our communities and how even one really motivated, creative person could change a whole community's image of themselves. So anyway, through that, I got really interested in what leads to a state that encourages creativity and encourages people to start out on their own. And so I got more and more interested in the environment, for self-employed people, for creative people, for how does arts education happen in our schools. And that got me interested in advocacy. So I ended up running a group called Oklahomans for the Arts that advocates for arts funding and for arts education at the Capitol. So that got me interfacing with the legislature and really interested in the process. And I went to a workshop put on by OU at the Carl Albert Center, puts on this thing called Pipeline to Politics. And it's to learn how to get more engaged as either a candidate or helping people run for office. And I wasn't really thinking I was going to run for office, but I was interested in how to get more involved. I'd never been involved on the campaign side, only on the more like once people are in office, communicating with them. But at the end of the day, I kind of thought, well, I could do this. Maybe I should do this. And the very next week found out that my state senator wasn't running. And so I had to make a decision. It was right in the middle of public education being cut like crazy. And I'm a public education parent and a big advocate. I came from public schools. My mom was a teacher. So I really believe in investing in our schools. So I'd been, organizing parents to communicate with their legislators about that. I have already been advocating for the arts. And so I really wanted a voice at the state level. And so when I found out my senator wasn't running again, I just thought, well, this is the time. Jump in there.
All right, and we're glad that you did.
Thank you.
Could you tell me about some of the accomplishments that you've been proud to be part of up at the Capitol?
That's tough. I'm a really tough grader. I know you're a teacher, and I'm pretty hard on myself because I always want to do more. But I was really realistic when I ran for office. I knocked on doors for about a year and a half and was elected in 2018, in November 2018. And I knew when I got up there that I would just be one of 48 senators, a freshman. and that anything you pass has to pass, your side with 25, plus it has to go through the House, has to get signed by the governor. So I was trying to be really realistic that I couldn't come in with like a 20-point plan and accomplish everything I wanted to. So, big part of what I'm trying to do is represent my constituents well and listen well. So I'd say I'm really proud of how many constituents I've gotten to meet, how many people I've tried to elevate their voice or learn about issues that matter to them. I mean, really, when people call me or email me, I learn about that issue. And it may not be something that's going to be my passion, but I try to make sure I'm investing my time where people that I represent ask me to. So, they might call me. If I have someone call me on an issue, somebody called me about Tesla, selling Teslas in the state. Or I have another gentleman who's very interested in solar and how solar energy can be put into our schools. And, those weren't my first issues, but I was like, okay, I got to learn about this because I'm representing people. So I'm proud of learning on the job. I've had a couple of bills signed. I worked with House members for 2 bills. My favorite was my first session. I got to pass a bill, basically like a different way to register your business when you're starting with the Secretary of State. And it's a social bottom line. So it's not just profit as your bottom line, but also if you want to have your shareholders agree that it's not just about profit. It might be about community development, might be about the environment, might be about animal well-being, whatever it is that you want to emphasize, you can write that into the founding of your company. And, one of my big worries is businesses that are started in Oklahoma, have roots in Oklahoma, they stay and grow here if we invest in them. And so wanting to make sure we're not just creating things that are moving out of state. So the benefit corporation bill is probably my favorite bill that I've gotten to move through. But I'll keep trying to work on that list of accomplishments.
All right. What are some things that you'd like to see get passed or be addressed at the Capitol?
Well, I have the dream list, and then I have, the list of things that might do slightly less harm. And I think we have to do both. When you're in the minority, you definitely have to be the critical voice that asks the hard questions, that tries to make the policy better. Since we're in a supermajority situation, there's 9 Democratic senators, so we're not in a position to stop things unless there's a divided Republican caucus. But we can always ask hard questions and try to push things to be better. So my number one goal always is to ask the hardest questions, to make sure we're not letting things fly by without raising concerns. And our caucus is the every bill. We research everything we can. So that's number one, is do less harm, which, you'd hate to say that about your electeds, but that's, we got to make sure we're looking at the consequences of the actions we take. Right now I'm most concerned about COVID and COVID recovery. Clearly, we haven't managed the public health crisis well. I'm worried that we haven't set aside the money or the manpower we need to do things like vaccinate or deal with the ongoing health crisis. So that's got to be number one, but also the economic fallout from people being out of work, our unemployment system being broken. And, how are we going to rebuild? We don't have enough jobs that have good health benefits. The health crisis is intertwined with that economic crisis. So I want us to do Medicaid expansion right. That's a big thing. I'm so proud of the public for voting that state question in. Has to happen. The legislature has to fund it, but I want us to do it well. The governor's wanting to implement a managed care where we would let a private company oversee that and take part of the profits. And I want to make sure that whatever we do gives people the best possible health access and options, and that we're not just sending money out of state. Those are some of the big things I'm worried about, keeping the priorities where they should be,
Okay. So how do you feel about the response to the coronavirus that the governor has had?
Well, I mean, I've been very concerned. It's, public health is just that. It has to be the society's agreement together to do things better. And we can't expect people to make choices that they're not given. So when we don't consider something the public good, it's a problem. So I've been very concerned. I think that the initial shutdown was pretty hasty and we didn't really plan it out well. And then he reopened overnight and we just ended up in a worse situation. And you've seen that the lack of attention to what medical professionals, health professionals are telling us. It's breaking my heart to watch hospitals having to spend their money to try to promote public health. Doctors are the voice of reason, and they're not really being listened to. So we've repeatedly asked the governor to implement things like, mask mandate. I know that's a hot button issue, but it's a very simple one that is pretty pain-free for people to participate. And if there's any chance it can reduce the spread, I think we have to commit to it. I think there's been a lot of pressure on local communities to make those hard decisions. And now our local mayors and city council people are facing recalls and all kinds of stuff. And, they're not equipped. Most of our cities and municipalities, they don't have public health people on staff. They have to talk to the county health. They're not public health professionals. Why shouldn't that decision be made at the state level? So it's in a kind of every mindset, and that's not the way I want to work.
Also, do you think that the state legislature will do anything to address the pandemic at all?
That's really hard to say. I would say thus far, no. Like when we came back into session during the crisis, the only big thing we did was release employers from liability. So if businesses cause the spread of COVID, they're not liable. And that's what, the state chamber was asking for. And I have real concerns about that. If somebody's forced to work in an unsafe environment, whose fault, right? Is that the employee's fault? I think we're seeing people going to work with COVID and it's causing problems. And we have workplaces that, they don't have paid leave. People feel like they have to go to work, right? So the other things we did address open meetings and allowing open meetings on virtual platforms, but the agreement that was made between the House and Senate left that deadline passed. So now all these public bodies are having to meet in person again. So I wasn't impressed with what we pulled off this spring. And I haven't seen any indication that our leader in the Senate is the President Pro Tem, the House Speaker. I have not seen either of them take a stand on anything related to public health. So I'm not anticipating a lot of that coming from the legislature itself. I'm afraid more of it will be about limiting options. We've seen a lot of people worried about mandates or more worried about encouraging vaccinations than they are about the public health crisis. So I'm concerned. I mean, I know that our caucus has brought forward solutions. I've seen the Dems on the House side. They've brought real specific solutions forward. So we'll keep doing that. We'll keep bringing up ideas that could work and say, like, it doesn't have to be this way. But I don't know what will get listened to, frankly. The budget's going to be a huge thing, like, are we going to have the money that we need as the federal money dries up, are we going to have the money we need to fight the pandemic and deal with the other services the state needs to provide?
Yeah, that was going to be my next question.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump.
Was the budget? Well, no, you're fine. But yeah, how do you feel about the possibility of a budget shortfall and how that's going to be handled?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's predicting a budget shortfall. I haven't seen the latest projections. I think they made some pretty dire projections for this year, so we seem to be meeting them so far. So I don't think we're going to have a shortfall for this fiscal year from what I'm hearing. But if this continues, the economic downfall will continue. As people are sick, people aren't able to work. I mean, our economic productivity goes down. People are exiting the workforce. With rampant COVID, schools are closing. That affects the workforce. So, I mean, everyone's expecting that next year is going to be even worse budget shortfall. And I haven't lived through that, but the legislators who've been through that before have just told me how heartbreaking it is. And I don't want to immediately assume that we have to cut. I think we have to look at all options first and consider the big picture and the long-term health of our state financially. I think we make a lot of short-term decisions and we deal only with what's going to happen in the next 6 months, the next 12 months. But this is going to be, they're saying they don't expect, nationally, the economists don't expect us to be fully employed for another 2 to 3 years. Then we need to be looking on a longer horizon about what our budget should look like and what are our priorities. And certainly cutting back on health and economic options, and education at this time is just short-sighted. Because our biggest pathway forward is going to be through diversifying our economy, which we need to give people options for education and training, and we need to give our small businesses options to, people to start businesses and businesses to grow here. So.
All right. And the last question I have is, what kind of music do you listen to?
Good question. I've gotten a little bit stale in finding new music lately. For a long time, I was kind of an Americana, listened to kind of alternative rock Americana, like, Jeff Tweedy, that kind of vein. My husband's a pedal steel guitar player. That's his true love, is music. So I listen to a lot of the music that inspires him. But God, I've been subjected to a lot of music from my preteen and my teenagers lately. So I'm learning the pop top 40 right now. They always want to pick the music, and it's kind of fun to actually have them excited about it. So I let them pick a lot. I need suggestions. What suggestions do you have for me, Gregory?
Ooh. No, I don't know if you want to hear suggestions for me. Most
I
of
love
my
listening
suggestions.
to The Spy and KOSU at night. I love the variety that they put out.
Like, most of my suggestions would be like heavy metal.
All
More on
right.
like the lighter side of things, but like, like most of the bands that I would suggest to you are probably bands you probably know of. Like,
Yeah. You like kind of old school heavy metal stuff?
I wouldn't call it old school, but the kids younger than me call it older.
Okay.
So like bands like Chevelle or Breaking Benjamin or Limp Bizkit or something like
Okay.
that.
Okay. Nice.
Um,
So I went to high school in Austin, Texas, which was like the best place to be in high school at the time. Like, they had all these music venues that were all ages, and so I could go see music like 2 or 3 nights a week. Went to see live music. It was the best environment, and I feel like since then, well, and in Minnesota, I got to hear a lot of great stuff, but I've not been as great about going and just hearing new things. I can't wait till we can go to some concerts again, though.
I know, like before this whole thing started, I was going to go to 4 different concerts and
So,
haven't been able to go to any of them. It really
yeah,
sucks.
yeah. What else? You want to talk about anything else?
That's all I can think of right now. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can we find you on social media?
Twitter, I'm Julia Kirt. It's JuliaKirt at the end, and that's same on Instagram. And my Facebook page right now is just Kirt for Senate or Kirt for OK. I'm not maybe. Anyway, you'll find me if you. I'm the only one that I can find, so that's kind of nice.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it.